Sonko took the gavel and then he did something that nobody, not his supporters, not his enemies, not the diplomats nervously watching from their embassies, had fully anticipated. He did not celebrate at all. He did not mock. He did not fire back at the presidency with the kind of public aggression that his removal might have actually justified. Instead, he delivered or sent a speech so composed, so philosophically grounded, and so precisely aimed at it forced every person in that chamber to confront a question they were not ready for. In whose names do we actually was not governed? That is the simple question.
Despite this false start by the Prime Minister, which is an unprecedented political formation in the political history of this country and perhaps the world, which is a political party that is both the majority in the opposition and in power, it continues to remain fully open to constructive and responsible discussions, which sets aside egos in order to find ways and means for peaceful governance and to complete its mandate under the best possible conditions. And this comprehensive conversation will not be about specific individuals or genders. It will instead be focused on the strategic directions and the overall program structure. What should we now collectively agree on with regard to our next steps? The executive, what specific commitments have in recent times been made regarding the restructuring? What are the prospects for the purchase memorandum? And avoid making Senegalese people bear the consequences of an increase. What about justice? And about double standards? So many questions. So many questions that should form the basis of discussions this year with the President of the Republic in order to consider continuing to support him. In a calm manner, the party, the National Assembly, the majorities we hold both in the opposition and within the executive. And so I strongly advocate for a greater sense of collective responsibility, for a genuine spirit of transcending beyond narrow personal interests. We cannot have a system of hyper-presidentialism in Senegal today, and the current configuration has decided as such. Ladies and gentlemen, honorable deputies and distinguished guests, here we are gathered together in this chamber during these holy days of Pentecost and the return from the sacred pilgrimage to Popongwin for our Christian brothers and sisters, as well as the solemn day of the Arafat fast and the blessed eve of the Tabaski celebration for all Muslims. Just a few days ago, I was at the head of the government. My record there is very clear. Ensuring full transparency regarding all hidden debts, the strategic renegotiation of existing interest rates, and Senegal's compromise, while strictly honoring all upcoming debt repayment deadlines. This includes a firm refusal of any debt restructuring, the implementation of a comprehensive economic and social recovery plan, and the moralization of public life, especially concerning all matters related to the management of public funds. The pervasive issue of corruption, the state's overall standard of living and necessary reforms, the growing public demand for justice, the protection of society and its core values, notably with this law against homosexuality, the management of complex cases related to agricultural flooding, and the rising cost of daily living expenses. Calming of the social climate and redefining the development model. This support for struggling businesses and the fight against corruption, I repeat it once again. And now, members of the National Assembly, I would like to ask you to first permit me to offer a deeply heartfelt, fraternal, and solemn tribute to my esteemed predecessor. To my predecessor, President Malik Ndiaye. For his unwavering loyalty to the patriotic ideals that unite us, and for his constant dedication. Next, to congratulate him for his brief but brilliant tenure at the head of this assembly, which profoundly shaped him in both substance and symbolism, he restored this building, which had begun to show the marks of time. From wear and neglect, he returned to it some of its former splendor and magnificence. On a human level, he paid exemplary attention to the men and women of this institution. Technicians, clerks, collaborators, service staff, he improved their status, forcefully reminding us that behind the deputies' benches, there are lives, there are families, and dignities to protect. On the financial front, he enforced a rigorous and methodical regularization of budgetary procedures, putting an end to gray areas and opaque practices. On the technological front, he initiated the digitalization of parliamentary work, introducing modern tools aligned with the highest standards. On the international level, he managed to give substance to parliamentary diplomacy. The service of Senegal's regulations, the regional and international positioning of our country. President Maringai, on behalf of all the deputies of this institution, on behalf of our political party, on behalf of the Senegalese people, and on my own behalf, I thank you. I also want to sincerely thank all of the deputies who have so kindly placed their trust in me today. Deputies of the world, but even more so, who place their trust in me. This trust binds me. Today, you are giving me more than ever the rebellious and institutional means of our role as vigilant guardians of our revolution. We will use it firmly and responsibly. I also want to send a short, affectionate note to my friend and brother, the Honorable Ismail Awan. Ishmael. I felt immense satisfaction knowing that it was going to be you, my substitute, knowing that as we walk this path, you have always shown, in all circumstances, absolute loyalty, rare selflessness, and total dedication. Your sincere friendship will remain one of the most precious gifts that public service has given me. As for my own part, my dear colleagues, as you are all well aware, I have served as a deputy for 5 years now. Yes, 5 very long and productive years. I have experienced the cramped benches of parliamentary opposition, the fierce verbal battles, and at times, the exhaustion of fighting alone against majorities that confuse strength in numbers with the legitimacy of law. Then I was mayor before being called to become prime minister. This experience, strengthened by my technical background in the senior civil service and my thorough knowledge of all current government matters, has prepared me to step into these constitutional roles. Long live the National Assembly, proud, renewed, and standing tall. Long live the Republic of Senegal, one and indivisible, eternal. Thank you.
Now, here is where the story cuts deepest. President Faye dismissed Sonko to reduce his power. That was the calculation. Remove him from the executive, contains his influence, rebalance the weight inside the ruling was no project. It was a logical move on paper, but what that dismissal actually did was hand Sonko the one platform in Senegal that the executive branch cannot actually touch, cannot dissolve, and cannot control. The Speaker of the National Assembly is not subordinate to the president. The legislature is a co-equal branch of government. President Faye moved to shrink Sonko's wealth, and instead, he handed him a constitutional fortress. Sonko claimed that position, but here is what that victory actually cost. Pastef is now visibly, publicly, and structurally split between the presidency and the legislature. Senegal's revolutionary project is no longer just governing a country or state. It is actually governed against itself. To understand why this split was always coming, you have to go back to the fire in which these two men were forged together. Sonko and Faye did not meet in comfortable offices. They were actually built in the crucible of prosecution, arrest, exile threats, legal harassment, the kind of political pressure designed to break a movement before the rich was in power. They survived it together and delivered the 2024 electoral breakthrough that sent shockwaves through the West African establishment and beyond. But even then, the roles were never truly equal. Sonko was always the street soul of the movement, the voice that made ordinary Senegalese feel that someone powerful was finally angry on their behalf. Faye was always the institutional face, the man the diplomat could speak to, the steady hand the international community could cautiously and carefully accept. Two functions, one movement, and the moment they want power, the question they had never answered out loud became impossible to ignore. Who leads the peace? Because liberation movements are built for the struggle. They are actually rarely built for the morning after. And what we are actually watching in Senegal right now is the morning was not after. Messy, tense, and honest in the way that only real was no power struggles can actually be. Sonko's speech from the speakers was no chair was not addressed only to Senegal. He quoted Aristotle on the ethics of government. He invoked the legacy of Sheikh Anta Diop on sovereignty or independence, not merely political sovereignty, but moral, economic, and social independence. He cited the Quran on the sacred nature of trust and accountability. He was not decorating a political moment with intellectual references. He was constructing a framework, a deliberate public argument that power is a trust given by the people, not a trophy claimed by the strongest. And the message beneath or under every word was pointed directly at an audience far wider than the deputies in that particular was not chamber. Ladies and gentlemen, don't forget to actually join this local community, like, subscribe, and turn on your notification bell.